Oh, okie dokie.
That was a long time ago.
Oh, gosh, it's ready. Almost 1 minute. Should the on the air light be on? Okay. All right. I would like to call to order the April 13th, 2021 meeting of the Onalaska Common Council. The time is 7 p.m. The notices were mailed and posted appropriately, and we'll continue with the roll call. Joanne?
Mayor Kim Smith,
Here.
Tom Smith,
Here.
Jim Olson, Dan Stevens,
Present.
Diane Wolf,
Here.
Stephen Knott,
Present.
Carrie Burmaster.
Here. Thank you. Item 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item 3 is the rules of the City of Onalaska Common Council and its subcommittees, harassment-free forum. City council and subcommittee meetings shall be conducted in a courteous manner. Citizens, council, and committee members shall be allowed to state their positions in an atmosphere free of slander, insults, obscene remarks, threats of violence, or for the use of the council or committee as a forum for politics. Sufficient warnings may be given by the Sergeant at Arms at any time during the remarks, and in the event that any individual shall violate the rules of decorum heretofore set forth, such person may then be cut off from comment or debate. Item 4 is public input. If there is any member of the public that would like to give input to the Common Council, now is the time to do so. Please state your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to address the Common Council this evening? Second call, if anyone would like to address the Common Council. Third and final call for those wishing to address the Common Council. I don't see or hear anyone, so I'll move on to item 5, which is a report from the mayor. Item A, Arbor Day proclamation. April 30th of 2021, whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heat and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas the City of Onalaska has been recognized as a Tree City USA for the 21st consecutive year by the National Arbor Day Foundation in honor of its commitment to effective urban forest management. And whereas the City of Onalaska also received a Tree City USA Growth Award for demonstrating environmental improvement, a higher level of tree care. Now therefore, I, Kim Smith, Mayor of Onalaska, Mayor of the City of Onalaska, do hereby proclaim April 30th, 2021 as Arbor Day in the City of Onalaska, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And I also have recorded a book to commemorate a reading of a story about a tree. and that can be viewed on our website in the Park and Rec section, so please check it out.
Could you read that now?
Um,
You might go to sleep.
It's not a
Bedtime
bedtime
story.
story. It's very interesting. Okay, next item on the agenda, recommendations for approval and/or possible action from the following committees, commissions, or boards. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests removal, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in the order of business in the non-consent agenda. Are there any items the councilors would like removed from the agenda? Alder Stevens?
Your Honor, I would like to remove item HH.
Okay, item HH, under the Park and Rec and Library Board. Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to remove item under Judiciary I.
Thank you. Are there any other items the councilors would like removed from the consent agenda? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Smith, to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The consent agenda has been approved. We'll now move on to the non-consent agenda, and item 7 is a recap of the items pulled from the consent agenda. The first one we will consider is item I from the Judiciary Committee. Stephen, are you the chair for that one? or-
I am.
Okay, so yeah,
I
just,
thought maybe since Diane pulled it, she might want to do it, but okay, so this is
so go ahead and just. say-
ordinance 1703-2021 to amend section 10.01.45 of Title 10 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Onalaska relating to school crossing guards.
Okay, so it was a recommendation of the Judiciary Committee to approve ordinance
It was, yes.
1703-2021. Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. I was just looking at the possibility of getting an update from the mayor and/or Chief Ashbeck. I watched the school board, Onalaska School Board meeting last night, and also Tom Smith also attended virtually. Just wondering if you would be willing to bring council up to date as to the status of your presentation last night.
Yep, let's go ahead and get this motion on the floor, and then under discussion, I can give an update of where we're at with that.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 1703-2021 as stated on the agenda.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve by Alder Burmaster, seconded by Alder Smith. Under discussion, I'll go first. I did hand out a timeline. Eric, did I give you one of these? The timeline?
No.
Okay, I do have one here if you want one. So I did hand out a timeline to the counselors, kind of outlining where we were at so far from the school district's perspective. This was brought to as hopefully you all know, the crossing guards were removed from the city budget as part of the budgetary process. On October 7th, we notified the school board that this was up for discussion at the budget meeting, that it potentially would be getting removed. At the November 6th budget hearing, the school district did send a letter to the city requesting that the city not discontinue that program. On March 22nd, the chief and I, as well as Sergeant Berg, met with the city administrator and the city finance director to discuss basically the timeline that continues to be described below, how we would enter into the process of doing this, transferring the crossing guard oversight to the school. And then last night, we did attend the school board meeting and go over this timeline, how it could happen. The school board was not supportive of the current plan. And it is also, I guess, just to give a little more detail. So in order for the school district to take over the crossing guards, several different things have to happen. One of them is this ordinance that we have before us tonight, which gives them the power to actually stop traffic. That's kind of the first step. The next step of the process would be for the school board to pass a resolution authorizing them to do it. And then once they pass that resolution, it would have to go to the municipalities that all contribute to their funding for the school district. So it includes the city of Onalaska, the city of La Crosse, the towns of Onalaska, Madera, and Hamilton. So each of those 5 municipalities would be required to pass a resolution in order to allow the school district to request or to tax them for this program. So the school district basically does not think that that would pass, doesn't imagine how they would take over the program, and quite frankly, thinks it is not fair to them that the city is withdrawing from this program. So I guess that is the short version. If maybe Tom Smith was attending virtually and Chief Ashbeck was also there.
I'll just say, I mean, I think you summed it up really well. I mean, their biggest concern was the safety of the kids. And they said if this doesn't pass, or if they can't get all the other entities to do it, their concern was, number one, they don't have the staff to do it either. And we did discuss that they probably have more opportunities for volunteerships, PTAs, things like that, than we do. But they still didn't feel, at least my thought was, and the chief can jump in, is that they really didn't want to pursue that. They want to find another alternative, either the city or something where we work together to figure out a solution. They were very disappointed that we just decided to end funding at the end of the school year without another plan B. And basically our plan B was them taking it over. So my opinion is they were not supportive of it, and they were not going to pursue what they needed to do in order to do that. So they said that they would go back to, they want the city and us to kind of, they said we've done a lot of collaboration over the years between the city and the school district. We use some of their facilities back and forth. They talked quite a few about that we need to find a way to make some collaboration. And, and the key is also funding. We talked about the primary reason was, we needed to cut budgets. We needed to cut, staff impact. And so they felt they had the same issue, is that they also have staffing issues and they wouldn't know how they were going to fund this. They concluded, I think they gave us a number, I forgot what the number was, but they would have to hire somebody to be a volunteer coordinator. And that would not go over well with all the districts because it would add to their additional expenses. Chief, I don't know.
Yeah, and let me just, in the handout that I have, the very, like the last paragraph of the narrative, one of the things that they did look into from the financial standpoint is that they would not need to go through this process of requesting authorization from the other communities if they could get a transfer of service exemption, which would allow the district to increase their revenue limit to absorb the program. And then I believe the ramifications of that would mean our revenue would be decreased, be just transferring it to them. But they had to discuss it with the DPI, and they would not guarantee that it's something that if they do go through the process of passing the first resolution that they would need, then they could take it to the DPI, and it's questionable if that would be approved. So that is one other route. Eric?
You are correct. There's 2 documents. The one is the ordinance change that's here, which is the topic at hand today, and that is clear that it's a change of our ordinances which allows adults, it's a very short ordinance, but adults, persons appointed by the Onalaska School District or Onalaska Police Department basically can have the authority to stop traffic. So there's nothing here that talks about cost or finance. You know, they already have people outside of City Hall, for example, that do act as crossing guards, and it is their employees, it's not our employees that are already here. Technically, they don't have the authority. So we talk a lot about, you know, working in coordination with each other. That's exactly what we're trying to do here, is actually change the ordinances that allow our current practices to officially take place, where their employees, their staff, or their volunteers can do so. So my recommendation as administrator would still be to make sure it's approved one way or the other, the ordinance that is in front of us today, because it does allow for whatever flexibility we need down the road. Whomever is going to be doing stopping the traffic would be entitled to do so by ordinance. The second thing is the resolutions that need to be circulated, either by having all the governing bodies that are affected by it, including the City of Onalaska, approve the resolutions, or by having a direct agreement with the school district itself that transfer will take place, where they can increase their expenditures, thereby decreasing our available expenditures as well. It's a transfer of services. It's intergovernmental transfer of services from one entity to the next, and you can make those adjustments. It's unfortunate that they're looking at that because even beyond the budget constraints issue that we have, if we go back, amend this year's budget, fund the other portions of that, we still have the same problem as we can't staff these positions. It is not the highest and best use of our police and law enforcement, who are trained, who are, you know, they're expensive for a reason because of the type of jobs they do, to be doing this. We have a difficult time recruiting those positions anyway that we have available to position. But that's been the difficulty all along recently, is both managing that department and staffing it. And so the budget is obviously concerning, because as we're looking at difficult times and the need to eliminate potentially staff or programs, one that we had a very difficult time managing became I would say, relatively easy budgetary target today to make. So again, even if you made the adjustments to that, we're still going to struggle with that. You know, who then internally is still managing that program? Who's doing the recruiting? Who's doing the follow-up when people don't show up? We're having that difficulty already. So that's the other thing to keep in mind this way. And so, as Tom, you had mentioned, the availability of volunteers is, I think, a very strong argument that I'm disappointed that the school district didn't take that opportunity to look at in greater detail. I do know that there are parents that would be more willing to volunteer their time instead of do cash contributions to the parent-teacher organizations, what have you, and are looking for opportunities. I think this would be a great opportunity for those that have that flexible time, that you don't have to do intergovernmental transfers, you don't have to pay, you know, it's a way that to increase the interactions. Those parents of those students and those teachers are things that we as a city do not have. We do not have that number of people coming to our building every day that you would have in the school districts itself. So I think it's the highest and best use is to not have our police force basically manage that program on behalf of the school district itself. The last thing I want to mention in terms of budget, I know it's, you know, about a 90-10 split, but there are residents of the city of Onalaska that do not live in the school district itself and are not supported by the program that are actually in the Holman School District or other districts. So just, you know, the other consideration that way is, you know, where's that best spread of funding for the program? And in my mind, it would be in the school district, encompassing a larger area and, you know, the specific area of those that are receiving those benefits.
Right. So, I mean, I ask that we just keep in mind this is a process. This was our first interaction with the school board on this topic. We do, I do still think it's important for this ordinance that we have before us tonight, that I do support that and think that needs to be approved because that is more reflective of what's happening in reality. And as far as next steps, the school administrator has reached out, and Chuck and I plan to meet with him as soon as possible so that we can have some dialogue before that next school board meeting, and we'll keep working on it and we can give you another update. So is there any other questions or comments? Alder Stevens.
Thank you, Your Honor. I also watched the school board meeting last night, and generally, my understanding is that item I, this ordinance should be approved to enact the will of council for what we had previously voted on last fall. With that said, I guess my concern in watching this was that I don't think that the school board members understood the kind of the firmness of that this is now not a budgeted item anymore, and we are not going to be doing this after this year. We had extended, I think Diane found in the budget some extra money, and we thought it was appropriate to at least get the school through that school board year. That was like 6 months ago. So in my opinion, they should be a little further along in the process, and it seems like they're just waiting for us to kind of save the day. And I think the catalyst was financial as to why we had to do this, but right now the reality is this is a feasibility issue. The person that we had, the position that we had in the police department that administered this, that position does not exist anymore. We now have a police sergeant that should be doing police sergeant things, and instead they're administering a program that's really for the school district, and that's not a good use of our police resources. So at least for the budget year, I'm not sure how much more we could collaborate unless we just fold the whole thing, and then where are we going to take the money from? So like going forward in a future budget cycle, perhaps maybe there could be if we could find room in the budget, maybe we could do a memorandum of understanding where we help them pay for the program. But the crux of the matter is that we don't really have the ability, and it's a very poor use of our funds to administer and staff the crossing guard. We have a hard time doing it. We have police officers that should be out, fighting crime, and not. It takes a lot of money for us to add a police officer, and it's just not a good use for what we should be having them do. And I think Tom had touched on, and Eric also, that volunteers at the school, do we have volunteers for the city? Not really that I'm aware of, but I know they're at the school all the time. And my understanding is the approval of this ordinance allows them to at least get volunteers. Some of the other issues that they had that they have to get passed through the different municipalities as if they want to pay people to do that. So if they can find people to do this for free, that's ideal. Whether that's how feasible that is for them, I'm not sure. But the reality is that my understanding is that we are not going to be participating in this budget cycle. And I think that needs to be made very, very clear. So the perception I had is that the school board kind of thought that door was open. My understanding is that it is not. So, and if that's not the case, then perhaps that's something we should talk about. But for now, the first step is we should approve item I.
Any other comments or questions? Alder Knott.
Just real briefly, I guess I'm a little surprised that, this is coming up at this point in time right now. Again, Alderman Stevens mentioned that it's been 6 months. It's actually 6.5 months ago that we had the initial notification, and the 5.5 months ago that we had the public hearing. So I don't understand why we would be hearing about the pushback this late. We're only 1 month out basically from the funding for the current program as it currently exists running out. And, we're just finding this out now. And that I don't know why it would have taken this long for the school district to determine that this problem exists. But two things, I guess. Number one, I cannot support using credentialed professional law enforcement as oversight or acting inside of the crossing guard program. We don't have an army of police officers, and that's just not a good use of resources. Totally in agreement with Alderman Stevens on that. And the other thing that comes to my mind is that, this is clearly a school district benefit. So it just makes sense to me that there should be a school district oversight and school district budgetary issue. That's just me. I mean, it just makes common sense to me. Other than that, yes, I'm totally in support of the ordinance as it is right now. So, yeah.
Thank you. And just to kind of respond to that, when we met with them on March 22nd, at that meeting, Chief and I and Sergeant Berg, we discussed the timeline and the things that are on this piece of paper. They didn't at that point indicate to us any of the pushback. It was a surprise. I mean, it was a surprise to us at the meeting as well.
Oh, that's where I was going with this, yeah.
And if I can add too, even way back when we did the budget thing, we reached out to Todd and told him what we were going to do. And we were like, oh my goodness, school, it's so short. So we made a compromise and we said, well, we'll fund it through the end of the school year. So you're right, it goes back 6-7 months. I mean, so this wasn't a surprise to them. And I think on the, I was on the Zoom, but I think we did hit home about the police officers doing this, and that's not
And I repeated it multiple times.
many times. Actually, the mayor talked about it. I think the chief did. And that this is the end. We don't have any funding for it after or any staffing to do it. So I don't know, maybe they didn't hear that well enough, Dan, the perception, or they didn't, I don't know. But we did, I think those did get hit pretty hard on the call or yesterday's meeting, is that we're pretty well have no funds after the school year. And so, and we don't want our chief of policemen to be manning that and supervising it. And we even said we have some volunteer, if we want it to be a pay position, we probably have some volunteers who are working today that probably would move over and be employees of the school district if we end up continuing to employ them. But if we felt that from a school district perspective, and having been on a school board for 7 years, there are a lot of opportunities for PTO, PTA, a lot more volunteer opportunities than the city has to do this, but I guess that's their decision. So, but I think just in fairness, a lot of those points that we talked about were hit yesterday. Now, whether they understood that, I guess that's the next step. So, but I will be supporting this too, because I think it is our first step to get it at least to pour our point.
Thank you. Alder Olson?
As I sit and listen to some of this conversation, my conversation reminds me of some of the past history with the school board that I remember from 23 years ago. And that was continuing $20 million referendums and lots of things that seem to me and to some other people here who have a pretty good knowledge of fiscal responsibility of being fiscally irresponsible. So now we're in a situation where all of a sudden this is a meaningful thing that means something. And here we're dealing with this now. So these things happen, and memories remember about how you handle fiscal responsibilities. And sometimes you look back and say, maybe some of the past has something to do with the future. I don't know. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. I too watched the meeting last night. I watched it live and then I played it back a second time because I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. I will be supporting this ordinance this evening, and I will continue to support Chief Ashbeck's stance at budget last year, where that current staffing does not really allow for the crossing guard program to any longer be a function of our police department. I couldn't agree more with Alder Stevens and Alder Not this evening. Going forward, I made a point after the meeting last night. I pulled the minutes from the F&P2, the October meeting. And we originally, the police department budget came up. There were a number of pages where we talked about this specific line item. And then we all shared concerns about the funding and such. We didn't have money at the time. We found money later on, and we said, we'll circle back, which we did at the end of F&P2. There were a total of 9 pages of minutes that we as at F&P2 committee spoke. And the 6 of us spoke about this, or maybe the 5 at that time spoke about this. So I don't believe that any of us took this with a grain of salt. We really were very, in my opinion, very thoughtful about our approach and also considered the school district and their position. And at the end of the day, we thought this was a fair compromise. Instead of just cutting it off, we were going to extend it through the 2021 school year, and I felt very comfortable. I thought that was a very fair compromise. So moving forward, I'm going to continue to support the police chief with his position. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, the motion we have on the floor is to approve ordinance 1703-2021. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. The next item is one that has been pulled from the consent agenda. It is item HH under Park Recreation and Library Board. So I'll turn that over to Carrie.
Thank you, Your Honor. Item HH, approval of a professional service agreement with Short Elliott Hendrickson, Inc., SEH, for soliciting neighborhood feedback and development of a landscape screening plan within Sandalwood Park in the amount of $10,000. It was a recommendation of the Parks, Recreation, and Library Board to approve this, and I make that in the form of a motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion on the floor by Alder Burmaster, seconded by Alder Smith, to approve the professional service agreement in the amount of $10,000. Discussion. Alder Stevens.
Thank you, Your Honor. I was well aware that the Parks Recreation Library Board, this was the trees being cut down by the Department of Transportation along between 53 and Sandalwood Park was of a concern to the people of that neighborhood, and I understand that. I also understand that there was a plan presented to plant trees that was generated by, I think, Mr. Wick and Mr. Holter. And I want to say it was, according to the map, they had it laid out, tree planting locations, 4 or 5 trees at each location. So it looked to be roughly about 40 trees total. Having read the minutes and the discussion from the people of that neighborhood, it seemed like the prevailing thought was that, well, they were upset that the trees were cut down, but that was Department of Transportation property, not ours. So for us to plant trees is, I think it's a nice thing to do, especially after the proclamation about Arbor Day. And with Earth Day coming up, that would be appropriate. What I don't think that we need to do, however, is pay a consulting firm out of Milwaukee $10,000 to talk to the neighbors and tell us where to plant trees. This is something that, I mean, I myself can go out with a shovel and plant trees, and I've done it in the past, and the trees are still with us today, so it's not that hard. I know that there's part of the funds are to do neighborhood engagement, and I would question the precedent of that. For example, we had Great River Landing. Did we pay a consultant to tell us where to plant trees? I don't think so. Any other park, we've never really done that before. This is a case where I feel that sometimes we become over-reliant on consultants. There are cases, for example, if we're going to build this water treatment plant, you know, we'd probably need a consultant for that because that's not part of our area of expertise. This, however, I think we can handle. And if we were to go talk to all the residents of Onalaska, knock on their door and say, should we spend $10,000 to give to a consultant in Milwaukee to tell us where we should plant trees, they're going to say no. I don't think this is being a good steward of taxpayer dollars. I think that this is a case where sometimes we need to just roll up our sleeves and get the job done. I have faith in between engineering and parks that we can go plant 40 trees. With a $10,000 savings, we could potentially plant more trees than that. My understanding from the neighborhood, from what I've heard, is they just want trees over there and they want some sort of living screen between Highway 53 and Sandalwood Park. As to what kind of trees are planted, I would leave that up to the park board. I know that there was a list of trees that may or may not work. That's not part of my area of expertise, so I would leave that to I would at least refer that part back to the board. So as such, I'm going to make a motion.
There's a motion. on
Have a
the floor
motion.
already.
Ooh, how do I want to do this? Okay,
Can we just have a discussion since we have a motion on the floor?
yeah,
Does someone else would
so,
like to talk?
okay, if this does not pass, I would follow that up with a separate motion to not spend $10,000 to SEH and to direct the City of Onalaska staff to purchase and plant trees at Sandalwood Park per the February 22nd plan presented to the Parks, Recreation, and Library Board.
Thank you, Alder Stevens. Alder Burmaster?
And I do want to reflect too that at the park board meeting, when we were talking about this issue, that this isn't just for planting of the trees. It's for a redesign of the park. And I do believe that we have paid for redesigning parks before. It's not something that's new. There's other issues at the park, just location of the equipment, things like that. They might be looking for a new idea for that area because it wasn't a real planned out area to begin with. So everything was just kind of put in a spot and maybe not the best spot. So what they're trying to do is not waste the money in planting trees and then having to redo it again later. We're trying to get this done and get it done right at the beginning so we don't have to, again, in how many years, go through this process. So that's the idea of the contract with SEH, is to get it done and get it done right. So, I mean, I don't know if that explains some of the reasoning behind it or not to you, Alder Stevens.
Okay, Alder Knott?
So I'm wondering if maybe it's just the wording of the proposal that maybe needs to be redone. If the $10,000 is more than just planting trees, it actually has to go to a park redesign, then maybe that's what it should say.
I think Dan can answer more
Let's
questions.
go to Park and Rec Director Dan Wick for a description of the intention of this item.
So, I agree with all the comments made, but we've received a lot of comment from the neighbors not wanting the trees planted along the path because it obstructs views if their kids are playing in the open area and things of that nature. There's been a lot of discussion about moving playgrounds, moving the basketball court. That all has a cost. That is why, in talking with Jared, talking with Kevin, when we looked at this plan, is to try to bring a consultant in to look at, to try to get the neighborhood's opinion on what they wanted us to, what they would like to see. So it is more of a redesign, but it is a screening plan. The screening plan is to screen from 157 or Highway 53 is the plan. But in doing that, there may be having to move the playground and the basketball court there.
Okay, Alder Stevens?
Well, thank you for that, Dan Wick. So there's another concern that if this is going to be a larger project we're going to be moving park things around, $10,000 is not going to cover that. And we have several other items on the park board that have been in play for a long time, such as the Roe Park Master Plan. We have the Great River Landing Boardwalk. If this becomes a larger item, it's going to require a lot more resources. And the people that were not happy that that screen is gone are potentially looking at having that living screen gone for indefinitely, for years. I don't know. That's not my district. I am not a member of the park board, so perhaps there's a prevailing theme that I did not pick on, but I'm assuming that there's a significant portion of people that want that living screen up. And if we don't act soon, and we put this in the cycle of things that are going to take time and take resources and take budgeting to do, they're going to go without, and they're going to have that naked view from Highway 53 for potentially a very long time. I think that the better course of action is to plant the trees sooner, but that, of course, is just my opinion.
And I agree with you, Alder Stevens. When we brought that to the park board back in February to do that plan, that was right in the midst of bidding out our trees to have a spring planting. With the park board voting it down, brought it back again the next month, we we missed the opportunity to bid. So if we are going to do anything now, we would be waiting until a fall planting or potentially a spring planting for 2022. Adding it as part of the capital improvement project list, you are true. We have a lot of projects out there, and it would be put into the mix with everything else that we have.
Thank you. Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, and I did attend that Parks Board meeting, and I thought Dan did a good job of explaining that we have a long list of items on capital improvements and how much we start out usually and what we have to pare down to. I don't know if people took it to heart and they listened, but I felt that you tried to give everyone fair warning what the process is and what is in front of them. I do get concerned when we're starting to talk about moving things and redesigning an entire park, and I can't even begin to put a figure on what that amount would be. And I share Alder Stevens' concern about, I've always been told that as an elected official to underpromise and overdeliver. And my concern would be that people are looking for coverage. They want some tree coverage and such. And I just don't want them to be expecting a big picture and we're not going to be able to deliver that because I know the price tag is going to be very hefty. So I would like to go. I think it's unfortunate that we missed that window, but I certainly understand the Parks Board decision and how they came about that. But I'm going to continue listening tonight because I haven't made a decision yet. Thank you.
And I think sorry if I can just make one other comment that, we're still waiting for the DOT. They've given us basically, and unless Jared's got a better update, but about a year, they told us that they're going to come in, to dig out the ditch, to add the berm. So they're not done with that project in that location yet either. So that is also part of why when we as staff put that tree planting plan together that Alder Stevens was identifying, is we were trying to make sure it was fully on city property. So we wouldn't have an issue of planting trees that the state, the DOT may come back at a later time to plant. So that's why we identified and tried to put a plan together that we thought would make the most sense at that time.
Thank you for that. I think Alder Nod is first, and then we'll go to Alder Stevens next.
So initially, as stated, I had some concerns too, but now that I understand what this full $10,000 is for, I'm more comfortable with it. So when we're talking about, we're concerned about moving equipment, I just want to make clear, we are moving the trees. The trees cannot go back to where they were. They have to go on our property now. So we are moving all these trees onto our property, and that may have an impact. And I think that's what this is being determined for, is what does this park really need to look like in the future? If we just plant the trees now, we are moving them without considering what impact that may be, that $10,000 might be looking like a bargain basement price. We're going to just be paying more money potentially in the future to fix a problem that we caused.
And just to reference, the trees that were taken down that were on the DOT property were not planted by the city. This was all trees that have grown up over time, a lot of softwood trees. So it was nothing that the city had planted. This is, that came up from seed and grew up.
Alder Stevens?
For my time in the past, when I served on the park board, it was astounding what some of the costs on playground equipment and setting up structure, park structures, how much that had cost. So the trees themselves are, while they're not particularly cheap in the grand scheme of things, they're not super expensive, and we could always curtail back the number to be planted. But in the event that there is a large scale redesign of the park, if we had to cut down all or some of the trees, I mean, it's a renewable resource. We can always plant more trees later, and I'm in favor of planting more trees if we can. In the event that that does not happen, and this is 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, we could still be wrestling with what kind of park do we want to have there. And that's a lot of time without some living wall between Highway 53 and where you have a park. So to me, it's two separate issues. My understanding is the residents wanted a screen of trees there. And then the second issue is, are we going to redesign that park? And that's another issue which we have not yet decided. So I'm still in favor of turning this down for now and then planting trees, and then we can revisit the restructuring of Sandalwood Park on its own merit.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? I'm not seeing any. So the motion that we have on the floor is to approve the professional services agreement with SEH for neighborhood feedback and development of a landscape screening plan with the Sandalwood Park in the amount of $10,000. The motion on the floor is to approve. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no.
Nay?
So,
Well, I will abstain.
so I have 4 yeses, 1 no, and 1 abstain. Is that correct? Thank you. Motion carries. Now we will continue with item 8, the Finance Committee. Alder Stevens.
All right. Under item 8, vouchers. The following is a list of monies expended since the last common council meeting dated March 9th of 2021. And the total is $2,249,360.33. And I move for approval.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Olson to approve the vouchers. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 9, Board of Public Works.
Thank you, Your Honor. A, review and consideration of 2021 fiber optic project bid. Jared Holter passed out. Everyone should have received a copy of the bid opening. I'll turn it over to you, Jared.
Thank you. I did pass out a bid tabulation from today's bid opening. We did have 5 bidders for the project, so we did have good interest in the project. You can see that there are 3 bidders grouped fairly close around the low bid. They're all, second bid is about 5% over the low bid, and the third bid is about 10%. So we received good bidding environment for our project. If you do look at the project, we did have a base bid of $274,372.19. And with the alternate bid, we are recommending an award of $302,830.82 to Five Star Telecom. They are the firm that performed the school district project that we're partnering with and we're actually extending. So this is the contractor that already installed the existing system that we're tying into. We did have $300,000 budgeted for this project. We do have funds from the mortgage revenue bonding that did fund the water and sewer portions of this for the $2,830 that we are over the budget amount. I feel at this point it'd be good to do the alternate, which is the Great River Landing, get done while we're doing the project. We couldn't bid it separately this cheap, so.
Thank you for that.
So I will move that we award the 2021 fiber optic project to Five Star Telecom for the base bid and the bid alternate number 1 and the total contract award amount of $302,830.82.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Wolf, seconded by Alder Knott. Is there discussion? Not seeing any discussion. All those in the motion then is to award the contract to Five Star Telecom for the amount described. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Jared, for your help getting this put together. Item 10, Parks, Rec, and Library Board. Alder Burmaster.
Thank you. Item A is approval of Resolution 28-2021 Outdoor Recreation Grant Applications. This item was not taken to Parks and Recreation and Library Board, but because of the timeline, this needs to be approved by May 1st. So we're bringing it to council, and I am making it with a recommendation to approve. That's a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Burmaster. It was seconded by Alder Knott to approve Resolution 28-2021. Is there discussion? Not seeing any discussion, please vote when your name is called. Right?
We can do a roll call, you bet. Tom Smith,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Jim Olson.
Aye.
Carrie Burmaster,
Aye.
Diane Wolf.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 11, Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to, this is officially our last council meeting for the council year. The April council meeting always signifies the last council meeting of the year. And I always get a little bit nostalgic about thinking about the past year, what we've done, what we've accomplished. I was told to keep this short this evening. So I had to cut a lot because I think we do have a lot to be appreciative of and thankful for. So I'll just touch on a few things that I think that I'm appreciative for. I think back about a year ago at this time, the council year, mid-April, we were just, 1 month into shutdown. The Omni Center was shuttered and soon the pool followed. Staff and poll workers ended up for last year worked through 4 elections through a pandemic. Didn't even know if that April election was even going to take place till the night before. So unfortunately, there were unprecedented layoffs in the city last year. We've had a few retirements this past year. We said goodbye to a few long-serving employees. A number of employees have deservedly been promoted within the city. And we've had quite a few number of new hires of late and more that are going to be starting soon. There have been some closures of businesses, but there's also been a large number of new businesses that have come into the city. This council has approved new construction and developments also going forward in the next year or two, which I think is really exciting for the city of Onalaska. One of the many highlights of this past year that comes to mind was Santa and Mrs. Claus traveling through Onalaska neighborhoods. Sorry, I'm such a sap. I think that's one thing that's really hard to beat, and I hope that we're able to continue that in the future. The fire department just took possession of truck number 1, our new ladder truck. And after several years of not funding any new police or fire positions, we did hire 3 new positions each for each department. And the police department just recently rolled out your body cams. Some things I personally have missed this past year was not able to celebrate the many celebrations and occasions that bring us together, like celebrating the swearing in of our first elected female mayor. I think there's something special about witnessing department heads like our fire chief being sworn in. I miss watching fire and police families coming in attendance and seeing their loved ones being sworn in. It's the traditions that I've missed the most, and I'm looking forward to reinstating this year once we get past this pandemic. I want to say thank you to my fellow electeds. Every month we all have hard decisions to make. Some months are harder than others, but I look forward to the new year and what it will bring and working with all of you. And on that note, a new council year also lends itself to looking forward to the possibilities ahead of us. I, for one, am looking forward to having constituents in our chambers once again. I look forward to the next city potluck, maybe the next picnic. I'm sure the staff at the Omni Center are looking forward to their annual spring gift and craft show, which is this Saturday, the 17th from 9 to 4, and Sunday, the 18th from 10 to 3. So if you have a bit of time, please go out and show your support. And I'm sure everyone is looking forward to the pool opening in June. I know I, for one, am. We also have $1.8 million in decisions to make in the near future. So, and one of the biggest challenges I think we're going to face as a council, besides finalizing the yearly budget and capital improvements, which we do every year, is replacing our 4-decade long serving finance director. So City of Onalaska has gone through trials and tribulations this past year, along with everyone else. We are not alone. But I like to think that going forward into the next council year, we are better positioned than ever before because of the people in these four walls at City Hall, excuse me, at Public Works, at the Omni Center, at the park shops, wherever you serve, you all matter and you all contribute. I didn't think I was going to do this, sorry. I want to thank you to those who have stood by the city. It's been a really tough year for a lot of people, and some more than others. And for some, I think it's because of the nature of their position. So I'll close with thank you again, thank you all again, and thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for the work you do and the contributions you make, the professionalism you bring to the table. We can only move forward if we're all moving in the same direction. And I look forward to the new council year with all of you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
And then I'm going to go home and cry now. Sorry.
All right. Thank you for that, Diane.
Yeah.
It's very nice. I hate to say this. Item 12, adjournment.
I'll move that we adjourn.
Motion on the floor by Alder Knott, seconded by Alder Olson.
Lots of discussion for this.
No, we can't discuss it. We got to just vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. And we are adjourned at 7:55.
At least Dan didn't say no.
And for the record, it wasn't